Hi, this is Drew Hoffman, and this is my final presentation for my senior project, CT 496-900 at Drexel University. It's for the employee resource portal for the fictional organization that I created called AITG. That stands for American Information Technology Group. Believe it or not, there is not a organization with that name, which I thought that was pretty funny that that name was actually available. Right here, you can see that this is going to be it's a website. So these are all of the HTML files that are included, some JavaScript. And some CSS. This CSS file is for the styling of the HTML. It's entitled Pork because it's one that I've used. It's a style sheet that I've used in the past that I like, that I created for a website a few years ago. And then right here we've got these are going to be any graphics or any PDFs that are used within the employee resource portal. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so as you can see, this is going to be the home page of the employee resource portal, and here you've got a few elements. You've got links to back to this home page. You've got a link to the policies and the procedures of the company. You've got training, and you've got a company directory, which is going to be the directory for management. We're going to go through each one of these just so you can see exactly what's involved in the creation of these different links and the pages that are associated with them. We've got some news on the side. Brush up on your soft skills with the new training exercises now available to all employees. Check out the new directory for administrator and management contacts. This one pertains to the policies and procedures. Unsure about if you're being compliant with company policies, access to all policies and procedures is just a click away. This is a brief explanation of what the employee resource portal is. The employee resource portal serves as a one-stop shop in regards to resources provided to employees by AITG. These resources include policies and procedures pertaining to collection and storage of customer data, training exercises, contact information, and other resources that employees may find useful. Let's take a look at some of the the coding that I used. So this is going to be the source code for the resource portal, for the homepage of the resource portal. If you'll notice, this is just a very simple array. If you look down here, this is some JavaScript array that I created. What you want to remember about an array is that you always need to start with 0. So what this is basically doing is this is taking a list of the images that I have and putting them into a cycle that swaps an image every 3 seconds or so. The 6,000 does not necessarily represent exactly 3 seconds, but it's close to 3 seconds. And as you can see, this the home page is set up in a table. All the pages are going to be set up in a table. I like to go with a consistent theme, but everything's set up in a table. As you'll be able to see the structure a little bit better as we move through. So let's move on to policies and procedures. For the policies and procedures, I've created several links to several different policies that you would normally find in an employee resource portal. The ones that I decided to create, an acceptable use policy, that's probably one of the most common policies that you're going to come across. A remote access policy, also very common in modern organizations, those that have VPNs, virtual private network connections to their private networks for remote users connecting from a public internet source. Separation of duties. This is a pretty standard policy to ensure that there's no conflict of interest with employees performing multiple tasks. Policy compliance, monitoring, and enforcement strategy. This was one that I wasn't sure if I was going to include, but I thought that it was a good idea because it's more of a procedure than a policy. Most of these policies have their procedures included within them, and I'll click on a few of them and we'll go over a few here in a second. Access and authorization policy for computer incident response team. Now, this is going to be a policy that provides the incident response team with the means to either take over a user's workstation or to take over portions of the system that normally would be closed down to only specific members of the organization, like administrators and that sort of thing. And then, of course, the incident response policy, which is basically just showing that you have a proactive and a reactive approach to any sort of incident, whether that be a security breach or a natural disaster. These are all very good policies to have put in place. So let's take a look at some of these. The acceptable use policy. So you click on it. It brings up a PDF of the acceptable use policy. And this PDF is you can save it, you can print it. I like that a lot. The company that I use for this, whenever they present some sort of policy that they want you to abide by, they always let you save it or print it as a PDF, which I really like. So I decided to do the same thing. And this basically says, let's see, so AITG has issued the following policy across the organization in an attempt to strengthen network security through the use of new protocols when accessing the internet or network. As well as an increase in employee productivity, management has outlined what is deemed acceptable and unacceptable use of the internet and network during operation hours using company devices as well as personal devices. And generally, this is the way that you want to have your policy set up. Is you want to have a policy statement. You want to explain your purposes and objectives. You want to have the scope, which is going to be who is covered by this policy. Is it everyone in the organization? Is it some in the organization? You want to make that very clear. Procedures. Internet monitoring and web content filtering will be implemented across the organization through configuration of firewalls and software for monitoring and access control, as well as performing regular audits through the use of packet sniffing programs to ensure that the policy is indeed being adhered to by employers or by employees of AITG. And then generally, you also want to have guidelines to outline any sort of hiccups that may come along with it. How you would go about getting past those types of problems. So that's the acceptable use policy. Remote access policy. Again, this is a very common policy that you're going to see in pretty much any modern organization who allows their employees to use remote access. I'm not going to go through each one of these policies individually, because each one of them is at least 2 pages, and there's some pretty some of the wording in them. There's just no need to go through each one of these. I'll be sending a actual hard copy of all of the project to you anyway. So. Policy, compliance, and enforcement strategy. The current internet use policy and physical access policy have recently come under heavy scrutiny due to the breach of system occurred early last week. As a result, both policies will need to be modified to ensure the organization is in compliance with all DoD standards moving forward. Now, DoD, that would be is if AITG, in this policy, we're assuming that AITG is a vendor to the DoD or works with the DoD Department of Defense. And this outlines, what the organization would need to do to be in compliance with the DoD. Some of these policies are for DoD. Some of them are for financial institutions. Some of them are for the healthcare industry. And the reason that I did that is I wanted to get across the idea that not all policies, while one policy may work for one organization and that conducts its business in one industry, it will not necessarily work in another industry. There are standards, NIST. Those are NIST and SANS are both big standards. But depending on what industry you're in, if you're in the financial industry, you're going to have to write your policies around banking regulations and data pertaining to that. If you're in the healthcare industry, you're going to have to take HIPAA into consideration. So there's lots of different things having to do with how you write your policies and what works here and what works there. But here we're assuming the AITG is a generic IT vending company that supports all different types of industries. So, all right. So now we're going to move on to the training. And again, I like to keep a theme as far as color goes and setup and everything. So what we're going to do, I know in my initial presentation, I said that we're going to talk about soft skills within the IT industry and how there's kind of a lack of them. So this is going to be a very short soft skill quiz built with JavaScript that is going to tally up your score at the end of it, give you back a percentage of what you got correct, and then also return to you what the correct answers would be. So let's start this real quick. All right, and as you can see, it opens up in a different window. It's the reason that I did that, I honestly just like the way it looks. I like the separation of it a bit better. As you can see, these are all multiple choice questions with 3 possible answers. At the end, we'll say, get score. It'll return us our score right here, and then below, it'll show us all of the correct answers for 1 through 10. But before we do that, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what is involved in building this sort of quiz. It's not too difficult, but it is easy to kind of screw it up if you're not careful, if you don't really know what you're doing. So this is what we're looking at right here. Is these are going to be the answers. You're going to start with 0, and what it's doing is it's for each one of these. Each one of them has a question associated with it. So here's the answers. Answers to the first one: introduce yourself and smile with a handshake. Try to equalize my participation in the conversation. Those are going to be associated with all of these questions down here, and these questions are made with radio buttons, very typical HTML type of questions. And at the end, it's going to tally everything up, and it's going to return it, and it's going to return all of our answers to us as we need them. So let's take a look at that. So let's see. When I first meet someone, I introduce myself with a smile and a handshake. I'm not going to go through each one of these individual. I'm just kind of click on these to show what it's going to look like. So some of these answers are pretty silly. I yell as loud as I possibly can and roll my eyes. Obviously, that's not correct, but but let's pick out that one. To end a conversation, I turn around and leave. Obviously, that's not correct, but we just want to be able to see how this is going to return a score and the correct answers. All right, so now we've answered all the questions. Let's get our score. We did not do very well, but that's because we were randomly clicking on things. As an example, if a coworker has put on weight, here's your possible answers. I say nothing about it. I asked if they are pregnant. I poke them in the belly. I asked if they're pregnant. Obviously, that's not what you should do. That is not. That's not a good example of a soft skill within a conversation. So we answered. We got 2 out of 10 right. Now it's returning all of the correct answers that we should have picked. So then we can go back and we can clear the answers, and we can go back and we can fill it out correctly, and hopefully get a score of 100%. So there is an example of a quiz that you may see on, or a training exercise that you may see on an employee resource portal. All right, so moving on, let's get to the directory. The directory is not too technical by any means, but it does show some good examples of building tables within tables, and showing certain what you might see as far as management goes within an IT organization. So we've got Jimmy Wrangler, who's our senior network administrator, and here's all his contact information. Laura Palmer, senior compliance officer. Harry S. Truman, who is our CISO. Dale Cooper, who is our information security manager, and then Miss Lucy Moran, who is our desktop support manager. And not to get too nerdy on you, but I'm not sure if there's any Twin Peaks fans, but all of these officers or management personnel are all actually characters from the show Twin Peaks. It's just something I thought that would be neat to throw in there. Except for this guy, I don't know who this guy is. This is just a random stock photo that I took from the internet, and I thought the name Jimmy Wrangler would be somewhat comical. So let's take a look at some of the source code here. Again, this is I'm using tables to separate everything, but I'm also using a table within a table to create the directory. So as you can see, this is the start of a table within a table. So here's Mr. Jimmy Wrangler, moving down to Laura Palmer, and Harry S. Truman, and so on and so forth. But these are the typical types of things that you're going to see within an employee resource portal. Obviously, normally they would probably actually be attached to a server, or all the time they would be attached to a server. This is not hosted. This is just I have it running on a flash drive. I didn't host it just because I didn't really feel the need to. But yeah, that is my employee resource portal. And as I said, I'm going to send an actual copy of the employee resource portal folder to you with everything in it. so you can explore it and take a look around in it, and maybe look a little bit closer at the policies and procedures that I've included in the training. So yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, and it's these past 2 semesters have been a lot of fun. Actually, I've actually learned a lot, and it really helped my web making abilities too, because it had been a while since I had made a website. So yeah, thank you so much.